Welcome back to your favorite convention-related podcast, Con Job. And this week, we bring back what we like to refer to as the Long Con.
Yeah, we're going to get into the topics like the blight that is AI and how it's just kind of covering our industry and the pros and cons of that. Well, not the pros, but the cons of that. And what
No
else
pun
are we talking
intended.
about?
We
Right.
also talk about how some shows are basically expanding and how we feel they might be expanding too much too soon. So we kind of get into the pros and cons of that as well. So as usual,
Enjoy.
Without further ado, welcome to the Long Con, or at least part of the Long Con. Alexa,
Yeah.
Dylan.
How's it going?
We get to segment
Okay.
some stuff today. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
gonna be
'cause-
good. We got a bunch of new topics, and we haven't done one of these in a while, and this will be the first one that Dylan's a part of. So,
Well, this
just
is the
to
first one that
catch-
we've done video.
That's right.
true. Yeah, there you go. The
God.
first vid Long Con. I like it.
VidCon.
So, so we have just a bunch of different topics, and we break it up into one long pod, basically. And so, what are we starting with? GalaxyCon.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think let's talk about convention expansion as a whole.
Okay.
Because we can kind of we can obviously GalaxyCon is going to be the topic, but we can talk about expansion as a whole because look, a lot of cons do it. A lot of cons, they're like, oh hey, let's move into this market, let's move into that market. Let take oh god, man, PopCon that's based out of Indianapolis. They've been in Indianapolis since 2015, and then a couple years ago they tried to do like a PopCon, it was like a Northern Indiana show that didn't pan
Oh.
out very well.
I didn't know
And
that.
then they went into Kentucky, and oh man, it definitely was not. The two shows that they've done there haven't been massively attended.
We've yet to have a good Kentucky show, just in general.
Lexington is like the only show that has really the only area that's really been profitable for me as a vendor. But Louisville's cursed. I caution any vendor or any promoter that goes into that area because one company ruined it for them years ago. But we can also talk about companies like Days of the Dead. They have so many shows. There's Chicago, there's Indianapolis, there's Atlanta. He had an Arizona show that I think they had to move this year because of some contract issues. But they're everywhere as well. So with that being said, let's talk about the big one, GalaxyCon. Ryan, do you have the list of their upcoming shows handy? Did you were you able to get that?
We started rambling in the pre-stuff, so I didn't really
we really
get
did.
into it. So
I
I'll
got
pull
it.
it
We
up.
got Columbus coming up in December.
Yep.
Brand
What were the
new
ones they knew? Yeah, what are just the new ones?
The new one, so they just announced New Orleans and also San Jose. I think that was new to this year, and then St. Louis.
Yep.
And there's also one in Orlando, right? And Miami?
There's
Or those
going to be
Animate?
those are going to be
So yeah, there's GalaxyCon, and then they have their Animates, and then they have their Nightmare Weekend.
So let's talk about them all because they're all the same company.
Yeah, all new ones, right?
So I mean, GalaxyCon is a good show. It is for the most part in the established cities that they're at. It's a name you're like, all right, let's go. They charge a premium, and you kind of know what you're going to get into. They have a pretty good guest list, but whenever they have a new show, they're still charging that premium, even though it hasn't quite been an established city. And that's kind of where we're at. Whether it's GalaxyCon, which has their main guests and everything, or to an extent their Animates and their Nightmare Weekends.
So what are we thinking though, as far as like I don't know, when I like to see when a show expands, they add one, maybe two. When they start getting into, I know they have different, quote unquote branding because it's horror animate GalaxyCon, but it's essentially all the same company doing it. So now you have to do all that extra work of all the, the advertising, all that stuff for 5 new shows. That's a lot of work.
Well,
There was an Austin one last year, and there's
there
no
was.
longer an Austin one. So
Well, and look, let's be real honest here. The the company that runs GalaxyCon has now partnered with a very familiar face in the convention world, Peter Katz, who is the former head of Wizard World. Was with Fan Expo for a year. He is now on board with them. So he has a lot of history in a lot. I mean, if you look at the cities that they're moving into and you compare it to, cities that Wizard World was in the last 5 years of their existence, it's really, really similar. So he already knows the ins and outs of a lot of those cities. So he's kind of enabling and I think probably pushing a little bit of that expansion.
I just think it's too much too fast. I'm not saying they can't handle it. I'm not saying any of that stuff. That's a lot.
Well,
let's do the devil's advocate. I mean, if there is, let's use St. Louis, for example. If somebody is going to jump into that space, as a customer, are you more excited to, you've heard of GalaxyCon? I'll probably spend my money at GalaxyCon St. Louis. This is brand new, versus maybe a small show that pops up. Like that's, it is a name some people trust. So there's that.
Well, I think honestly, not so much the name, and I could be wrong here, but I doubt it. It's really going to come down to the guests. And I feel like a GalaxyCon is going to have a much bigger budget with that than your mom and pop type shows coming in for like a 1-day thing. So I mean, no, I don't think people, unless it's somebody like San Diego, nobody's going to be like, ooh, GalaxyCon or PopCon. You know what I mean? It's really going to be like, oh, who's going to be there? That's the one I want to go to.
And so there's definitely some stuff with that. They're going to be able to get the guests because now they're offering 25 shows, 20 shows, whatever it is.
Right.
So they're able to leverage that with agents, and they're able to say, well, look, I want to book your top tier voice actors at all of the shows that I'm doing, or I want to book the Scream the Screamcast at all of my my Nightmare weekends and my Galaxy Cons. They're going to be able to get those top tier guests. So from a fan's point of view, it's fantastic. Looking at it from the other side of things, look, conventions do non-compete clauses. They do, they do non-compete clauses that are, a radius from, the city that they're in, and they do time frames. I know right now with all the shows that they have that are within a certain vicinity of cities, and I'm not going to say that their non-compete mileage is going to overlap with some of those larger cities, but guess what? It's going to overlap, and the time frames are going to overlap.
Absolutely.
So now those larger cons in those cities where I'm gonna take Chicago, because I mean they are, if I'm not mistaken, they're in Rosemont in Chicago. You've got them taking up let's see, May 2nd through 4th. They may end up doing a 90 days, 90 days, post and 60 days pre type thing, which means that, a Fan Expo is going to have a little bit harder of a time to pick up those guests, or, the New Orleans one is going to be interesting, or actually, you know what? The Animate Columbus one is going to be interesting, because
that's the December one, right?
Well,
no,
they've
Columbus,
got one.
Just GalaxyCon Columbus is December.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
But their Animate show is in June. So they're 6 months apart. So if
you're saying they're basically booking up the whole year, is what you're saying, for that sort of area?
It could be.
Now,
Um,
are you more
So
concerned that it's hurting this is going to hurt other shows, or you're saying that this is going to hurt GalaxyCon because just oversaturation?
well, I don't think it's going to hurt
I,
GalaxyCon in the oversaturation part, but I think it's going to hurt the other cons that are trying to come into the area. You know,
what is the purpose of doing both? Because I've seen many times where they call it animate, but they have you think, oh, it's going to be all anime celebrities or whatever, right? But it's not. Like I saw, what is there, Animate Des Moines that just happened or is happening?
Yep.
Is they have 3 Disney princesses there.
so their
what?
their concept for Animate is not an anime show, and to be honest, I think it's kind of ill-advised, because they're trying to put all of the animation people together, whether it's anime or if it's traditional animation like a Transformers, a Disney, a He-Man, a She-Ra, the classic cartoons that we watched as kids, or if it's new. I think those are two completely different crowds. They're two completely different fan bases, and if they can get them both out, that's great. But there's also a culture of anime conventions
Yes, yeah,
that,
it's a lot of younger kids, I think, right?
yeah, that corporate shows can't capture. Yes, the Anime NYC, yes, the uh oh gosh, Anime Expo. Those are big shows that, are kind of
But that leads me
they're the
to my
exceptions.
another question. So you have your Anime NYC, you have your NYCC, right? NYCC, when you walk in, there's always, every year there's that gigantic statue of Luffy. Like this last year it was the big giant Gear 5 Luffy. So there's obviously tons of anime stuff there. So couldn't they just kill 2 birds with 1 stone and have just NYCC? Why do they need to have Anime NYC? And I'm saying this for everybody. Do you have to have an anime show in the same place unless you're going to have like a fall and a later in the year one?
Well, it's a
You know what I
completely
mean?
different
Like,
company running the
I
two
get
shows.
that. I get that, but
Oh, but I mean, even if it's an Animate and a GalaxyCon, it might, because there are some shows like we have a fall and we have a spring show. Maybe if they just have slightly different names, but it's by the same company, you're like, oh, okay, like I know what I'm getting into when I go to this show. I know what I'm getting into versus this show, as opposed to I'm going to go to this show both times. Oh, I just went to that
yeah.
show 6 months ago. Maybe that's a reason behind that.
Well,
I-
man, it's
because they're so similar. Again, you're gonna have the same stuff for the most part. I mean, yeah, it's all themed one way for anime shows versus half and half. You know what I mean? But what is the real difference?
I mean, anime shows bring a completely different crowd.
Yeah, but they're
And
gonna go to the majority of these shows. And I'm not saying it's gonna happen in every city, but I'm using New York as an example because they're 2 huge shows. But I don't know.
well, okay, do you want to cram even more people into New York Comic Con? Do you want to be there 6
Yeah.
days?
As a vendor, I only want to have to pay to go there once.
Do you want to have to compete against all the other vendors that are going to try and
We
get in
do it-
there, that are going
we
to be
do it every
willing to
other
pay
show.
3 times as much as what you are?
I mean,
I
there's
know.
So yeah, because here's a pro for where I'm okay with oversaturation. Back to back in the exact same convention center, there's DreamHack Dallas, and then 5 days later, there's Fan Expo Dallas, and totally different crowd in the exact same convention hall with 5 days apart, and we both kill it at both of those shows. Different, some overlap, but I mean the exact same place, different crowd of people. So there is a pro to that.
There is. So let's break down a lot of the holy crap with what they're doing. One, they're going into established markets already. They're going into
or
Miami.
ones that were there and like St. Louis.
Exactly.
That
So
haven't had one in a long time.
I'm gonna go down the list of different things, like Des Moines, which is next weekend. They're doing Nightmare Weekend and Animate the same weekend.
In the same building.
Yes, and yeah,
Oh,
they're
really?
literally just splitting the hall.
Yeah.
Then they're doing There's a Comic-Con that happens in June, there, Des Moines Con. So they're far enough apart that it doesn't affect either con. They're doing a Nightmare Weekend in Richmond. Then they're doing a Nightmare Weekend in Miami, where the owner used to have SuperCon, until he sold it. Then GalaxyCon Columbus, obviously. Then Raleigh is getting an Animate in January. Animate Miami is happening the second weekend in February. Now, that's kind of interesting, only because there are a lot of things that happen in Miami, like in South Florida. And I think Otaku Fest, that's Otaku Fest's like original dates. And now Otaku Fest is at the end of May, if I'm not middle of May.
Yeah.
Then they've got GalaxyCon Richmond in March, Nightmare Weekend in May, Oklahoma City in May, Animate Columbus in June, New Orleans. And here's where like I'm a little like, ugh. New Orleans in July.
I love the idea of the New Orleans one because it's not right after Christmas.
It's hot as balls.
Yeah, well, we're inside. Could care
Doesn't
less.
matter.
We're inside.
Doesn't
We're
matter.
inside.
I'm going to tell you right now.
We live in Florida. It's not hot. It's fine.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to tell you right now, people aren't going to come out to that. It's been tried before. It's
in that time. You mean during that time?
Yes.
So what's the right time for New Orleans? Because
there's not. It's a city that used to be, 800,000 people, and now there's 300,000 people in the city. The average income there has dropped almost 60% since 2016, I think it is. That's a massive dump.
Oh, absolutely.
There is no room for another con there. There's really no room for Fan Expo because it's not that great of a show. It's okay. We go there, and Ryan, I'm telling the truth here. We go there because we like New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Raleigh is 2 weeks later in July. And
same weekend as San Diego.
Same weekend as San Diego. Then their GalaxyCon San Jose is a couple weeks later. They're doing a Cleveland show, and then they've got an entire month off, and they're doing. No, they don't have a month off. I lied. They have Animate Orlando, which we'll go on to that in a minute when we talk about oversaturation. But they're going into Philadelphia in October. Philadelphia, where it's hard for Fan Expo Philadelphia to get people out. There's been anime conventions in Philadelphia. They're okay. GalaxyCon St. Louis is in October. Literally opening weekend for hockey and playoff season for the Cardinals. And as someone who's from St. Louis, I will tell you straight up, if there is baseball happening in October, don't even bother going to the show, because that city, 1, loves its baseball, 2, will be booked solid for hotels. Nobody will be able to come in.
I have never once considered sports as a factor in whether booking a show, because I'm not that into sports. So I'm like, I've never even thought that that city, that weekend might be busy, because that just doesn't come to my mind. So that's interesting.
Well, you did MADX this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Hotels were significantly higher than they typically are there, because there was a college football game that happened this weekend. Didn't affect attendance from what I understand, because I think everybody that I talked to had an okay weekend. But it definitely affected those hotel prices in the city. And it's going to do the same thing with a show that's being held during playoff season, especially if they're, look, the Cardinals suck this year. They're probably going to suck next year, so it's not really that big of a deal. But still, but that's a lot of shows. It's a lot of infrastructure that they have to they have to create. They're sending trucking all across the country, zigzagging left and right. It's a lot of logistics. I haven't heard that Kurt has anybody else on his team. That's a lot of shows for him to organize. I hope he's getting paid very well.
Here's my take on oversaturation. I like oversaturation with a grain of salt in that there's nerds throughout the entire country, but not everyone wants to travel even 2 hours out of their town. So you know what? There's people that are going to go to a small show or a big show, and hey, this one pops up in their city. Like we got them, and they probably never would have made it to San Diego or New York. And now if we can get there, but with the caveat is if you're going to try new markets, let's price accordingly, and that can be the issue, because I like oversaturation. I want to keep my team busy. I want to be everywhere, everything all at once, but let's charge accordingly to the marketplace that you're in.
100%. Looking at a Columbus, Columbus is way overpriced for what that market is. I feel like Richmond is the same way. It's a great show, but it's also, it's definitely a high price tag. St. Louis and New Orleans will be the same way. I mean, look, we talk about it all the time. Shows have increased exponentially since COVID.
Well, did we
Go
even
ahead,
talk
Ryan.
about price? I was going to say, did we even talk about pricing?
Well, do you have the
Because
pricing? Do you have the pricing for the booths up, Ryan?
no, Dylan, you had it up. But
Well,
GalaxyCon's pricing has gotten significantly higher over the past few years. They have the premier position, second position, and it was like some of that premier stuff was like I would think Raleigh, I want to say was like $3,100 for premier, for first position. That's like San Diego pricing.
that's true.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
and that is the thing. And if you've done a show before, you know what you're getting into. I love GalaxyCon. I've signed up for all of the new shows, but just like what you said, the booth price is at a point, and I kind of know what I'm getting into for a GalaxyCon.
Right.
And the sales
But when
might
you have
be a
a-
set amount, but the profit isn't going to be what maybe another show that's smaller, but they're charging less, and profit's going to be higher. And in
But
the end,
then
profit's always the prime thing you want to go for.
Exactly. And but the reason I'm bringing it up is because a first year show, like who's going to pay? Is there anybody going to pay $3,100 for a booth in New Orleans?
Well, here's the thing.
I don't know if that's the price. I'm assuming that their pricing model is one.
So I
it's the
just
same.
pulled up the New Orleans. So let's talk about it real quick. Premier 10x10 corner, which is the front of the show, is $21.95.
Okay.
Premier
10
10
by
by 10 for a 10x10. Premier 10x10 pipe and drape corner booths in the second position is $19.95. Non-genre brand 10x10 corner booths, $14.95. Non-genre brand 10x10 inline is $12.95. A standard pipe and drape corner is $1,200. Standard inline it's $11.95. Standard inline is $9.95. Premium artist and craftspersons 8x10 corner is $895. Premium artist and craftspersons 8x10 inline is $695. Artist alley tables are $395.
So that's a big
Is-
leap between an artist alley and an exhibitor, which
Yes.
we've
It's
talked
just-
about many times.
It's just, I know, it's easier just to have one pricing, but I feel like some of these shows, especially in a first year, need to entice us to come more so than hey, our price is what our price is, and
Yeah.
GalaxyCon's a big name, and I'm not trying to downgrade it at all, but it's like, again, like you said, New Orleans in July, like, do I want to pay? Let's say I'm going to get the first position. Am I really going to pay $1,800 for a 10x10? Dylan always gets doubles. Is he going to pay almost $4,000 just to walk in, minus hotel and flight, just to walk in the door? Like
that's
a
the
big
thing.
hope. You're probably talking $5,000
Well,
before you walk
you're
in the door.
looking at their booths right now are the same as a Fan Expo booth for an established show.
An established show, right?
and
But and
that's
I don't think Fan Expo New Orleans is that much for
No.
a single. I know you can't necessarily get a single corner, but a
Right.
single booth is not 28. What was it? 20 something. I know second position was 1,800. I know they're not that
yeah,
expensive.
it
I
was
want to say they're like
$21.95 for the first
I
premier
think they're
position
like
booths.
11 for Fan Expo.
I think
Give
if
or
you
take.
do
You know,
like a
might-
corner,
Yeah, like a single corner. You know, you can't get a single corner, but you can hope to get a corner with a single. But I think it's like 1,100. That's a big difference.
It
It's
is.
a big.
Mhm.
And again, I'm
Um,
not saying one show is that much better than the other, but it's like, first year show, like you're really gonna have to advertise like crazy to get people to show up in that area. And we're
Yeah.
only talking New Orleans. What about Miami, which has a million things to do? There's a million things to do in Miami.
there is.
So what's going to entice me to come to an art show?
So,
You
so
know?
Dylan, you made a comment, and I've been thinking about this like since you said it. You like oversaturation. Let's talk about Central Florida next year. Between July 1st, or let's talk about, I guess, Central Florida South between July 1st and the end of September next year. You have in July, you have MetroCon that's in Tampa. There's a new convention coming in that they haven't announced it yet. I talked to the promoter actually for about an hour and a half on Friday, just about like some strategy for them because they're coming into the market new. So they're coming in July. We have Florida SuperCon that happens down in Miami. You have I think the end of September is an anime show in St. Pete.
Mhm.
Fanboy Expo
Oh, yeah.
is the
Tampa?
is the end of September. Tampa happens the first weekend in August. There's the second weekend in August now with Animate Orlando. You have Soji Expo, which is run by Ben, formerly of AwesomeCon Nerd Street now. He has an anime convention here. There's Creation Entertainment is bringing in a Star Trek convention in August of next year. Then you also have QuestCon that happens. You have Kissimmee Pop Culture Day. You have there's a Space Coast Con that happens. This year you had 90s Con that happened in Daytona. I don't know if they'll be back or not. NostalgiaCon is rumored to be coming into the Central Florida area in that
Did
time frame.
you mention Ancient City?
Ancient City Con
Yeah.
that just happened.
Right.
There are almost too many things happening at that point. And now it's, those cons in those 3-month time frames, they're going to be fighting for customers because back when, and this is before both of you guys were in this industry, back when I was a kid,
Back in my day.
and a lot of our listeners, viewers are going to remember this time. But there were times when there were only 2 cons in a city in every year, and you saved for those cons.
Mhm.
And when you did Chicago Comic-Con before it was Wizard, when you did Chicago, you crushed it. You could do that show, and you didn't have to do another show for another 3 months until you did that other show that was in the other city that people saved for. And now, we've spread those nerd dollars out so much that, we're getting into almost a point of it's a critical mass where there's gonna be a crash. And I'm not even counting, cons like Ocala, Spookala, any of those type of shows
With
that
the
happen.
Central Florida one, right?
Yeah.
The Nerd Street ones, yeah.
We're almost as bad as Texas right now with how many show options
and we're
we
half
have.
the size.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, it's not. I wouldn't even say half the size. We're talking only pretty much Central Florida, which is really just the piece across the middle there.
Mhm.
You're not even talking Jacksonville. Or, I mean, yeah, you mentioned Miami, but there's some in Jacksonville too. There's,
Yep. Yeah,
but yeah,
there's something in Gainesville that's happening.
right.
Pensacola has 2 shows. Um, let's see, who else has another show? There was one in Destin last year. Like, there's a lot of shows, and I feel like that is almost. I mean, that's the point where it's too much because now you have too many options. Like, we love it if we can get in at a decent cost, but all of these shows are wildly overpriced, save for a few.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm with you. If there were just 10 shows in a year that made the same money as doing 100 shows, obviously that's the way to
That's the
go.
dream.
But um, at least especially when you have a team that needs to get fed, I look forward to, oh, hey, I can put you here, and there's just more, you know, just these smaller shows peppered in throughout the whole year is kind of like the lifeblood of income coming in and out that I can give the teammates and just being everywhere. But I mean, yeah, everybody wants to just do the big shows, and I think I've been kind of spoiled for the most part. I only do my Dallas shows or the biggest shows. So whenever I do the smaller shows, which I just did, I can kind of feel it where I'm like, oh, this isn't the same as whenever I hop on a plane and I go over and do New York. So I get it.
So, with that being said, and then we'll get back onto the expansion thing. Most vendors don't have a team. You guys are lucky enough that you have a product where you can send people multiple places. Most vendors they don't run teams. The sword guys, I think, are lucky enough to have that. Misty Mountain, I think Stylin, has some teams with his boxes. And then, select artists have their teams. Um, so for the others that don't have those teams, it's very hard for us to look at, I can't look at all the Central Florida shows and go, oh yeah, I'm going to hit all those because I'm not going to make any money. And so now I have to pick which show is worth it for me to do because I can't do all 9 of them in a 12-week time span because then I'm also giving up, those 3 big shows that I would be doing in that time frame too.
And you
You
have
know,
to
I
make the product in between.
exactly.
Right.
So it's definitely it's a different dynamic. So I loathe the oversaturation. I would love for it to be spread out as far as time frame and where they're held at. Because look, you can't hold all your damn conventions in Orlando. Stop it.
That's true.
Yeah.
They'll
So
try.
let's get back onto this spreading out thing because it's I'm concerned. Um,
I'm going to harp on it again. My biggest thing is just the pricing. I feel like when you're first time in a new place, you need to structure the pricing accordingly because you're going to, if it's good, you're everyone's going to, then go up. Everybody knows these shows go up in price every year anyway. So,
yep.
I wouldn't say cut it necessarily in half, but cut it down and then just, then move up. It's like
I
you're
mean,
going to
look,
entice so many more people. But again, there are also a lot of people, oh, it's GalaxyCon, I'm in.
well,
So
yeah.
which that's the
And
hard part.
but look,
I can't fathom someone spending $2,200 for a New Orleans show
well, a St.
for
Louis
one
show
booth.
should be
Same
750.
thing. I was
New
gonna say
Orleans should be 750.
I was gonna say 800. So yeah,
These animate shows, they should never be over $1,000 for a booth for the first year. Um, because they are
but they're getting it. So
100% a
who are we
gamble.
to tell them what to do, right?
Well,
They must be getting it.
yeah, and that's look, if you're the Dylan, if you're the vendors that are, literally just forking it out because like I get it. I do. I 100% get it. But also you're enabling, and I think we talked about this, we're still paying the damn money, so we're enabling them to do it. But there has to be a point where shows that do this are going to collapse the industry. Um, because there's going to be a point when you look at the show, I mean, let's look at New York Comic Con for a second. If we're going to talk about prices, my booth is $5,200 for a double inline this year, and that doesn't include anything and like it includes nothing. So like
No
it's
tables even.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no tables, no trash
You
can.
could-
I'm lucky that I got a floor. Like,
They give you tape on the ground to let you know where to stop.
well, and it's usually a foot shy.
It's true.
It's never the right size. But I look at in New York, and now they're like, oh well, if you want to move, do advertising with us,
Yeah.
or that's the only way I can guarantee a move, or I can give you better placement. So now it's shifting, and that's unsustainable for most vendors to pay 5, 6, in 3 years, it's probably going to be $6,500 for that same booth. And when when you're paying the exorbitant New York hotel prices, now you're in the show for 10 grand.
Right.
What vendor do you know, like, that is not a vendor that moves massive volume, that is okay with $10,000
And
before they even go
I was
in?
gonna say, are you including hotel and airfare in there as well?
See,
Or
I'm
just
only including I'm
booth?
including hotel, booth, and
Because
probably
remember that
airfare.
hotels are
That's not product.
exorbitant in that
Mhm.
area, at that
Yes.
time.
Well,
'Cause we're
unless you're me and you stay across the river in Secaucus.
yeah,
Same
but I'm
here.
just
We're
saying,
trying that
even
this year too.
even that, they're more expensive than they would be the week before or the week after.
Mhm.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? By a lot.
Well,
So
and now,
we were going to stay across the river and do a ferry, but the princess wasn't keen on wearing her outfits on the ferry and crossing, so
she could get really
to switch
cute
it.
ferry pictures. What are you talking about?
Oh, on that river?
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But we did honestly,
like with
I
New
did
York in the
find
backdrop. Yeah.
we did
Come on,
find
Meg.
we found one for actually a very similar price. Like it was like $12 more a night to stay
Yeah.
3 blocks away. So
Well, and
it's just
like
easier.
again, because I can't fly in, I've got to drive in.
What is that, a 20-hour drive for you?
It's 19 hours.
16.
If
Meg
when
mentioned
you
driving,
factor,
and I said, "Yeah, right. You
well,
drive.
when you
I'm
factor
not."
in traffic, she'll sleep.
Yeah, I'm
She
sending
will
pictures.
100% sleep.
I'm sending pictures.
Every time Ryan and Meg travel, he'll send me a picture, and it's always of her sleeping.
It's me like this, and she's in the background.
Yeah, every time. Doesn't matter where they are in the world,
Yeah.
she's sleeping in the car.
Yeah.
No, I have to factor in the cost of the tolls. I have to
Oh, I
factor in the
forgot
cost of
about that.
parking
Yeah.
whenever I drive,
And
because
you're not. I mean, although sometimes you'll sleep in the car, but a lot of people will get a hotel for a night, so that's another. Even if it's
Mhm.
$120 hotel, it's still,
Yep.
after taxes, it's $150.
Yeah, and it's a
So-
massive expense that is
Right.
only getting worse. And I feel like, we're obviously nobody's given up New York. Like,
Yeah,
they're just not. It's like nobody's given up Dragon Con. But these other cons that look, I made the comment that I there was a show that I was talking to that they gave me their pricing, and I was like,
It was April Fool's Day.
this is like more than C2E2 is, and you get half the people.
Yes.
What?
Right.
And and then they had a sister show that was more than a New York Comic Con booth. These are not Comic Cons, as an FYI, but still they don't bring nearly the people, and I'm just like, wow, this is not this is weird. Like, you're very proud of these booths, and
Any chance we're talking about some sort of gaming show?
as a matter of fact, yes.
I just know that the industry of gaming shows, they say this is the price, and it is that we want to talk prices. That's more than New York and San Diego combined.
Yes.
But yeah. So, but there's also not a million vendors there, so you're going to be fighting against 4 other vendors. So there's the catch 22 of that.
The guy that's selling the chairs.
Mhm.
It's like 3 artists, 2 merch vendors, and a chair guy,
Mhm.
and that's it. So yeah, while I agree with that, you pay for the exclusivity. it's
but it's a
crazy.
scary cost up front for something
Absolutely.
you've never done before, and that's
Absolutely.
the whole gist of all of this expansion. Yeah.
Yeah, and and let's talk about, how it's going to stretch resources, and these shows are going to, with GalaxyCon especially. We saw it with, and I love my guys at Fan Expo. You guys know how much I love that company. Most everyone in that organization is fantastic, but there was a post that was shared a month or two ago about, hey, if you're interested in getting into MegaCon, you should consider doing these other shows. And it'll help. It was insinuated that it would help you get into those shows, and some people it did. Um, the thing is, like, how long before, with Animate, you're going to see them saying, well, the waitlist for Raleigh is, 8,000 people long, but if you do 6 of our Animate shows, we'll get you at the top of that list. At what point, do they start leveraging those other shows to be hey, you got to do our shows to get in? And how long before people start realizing that sometimes doing shows as a loss leader isn't going to be profitable in the long run? Because look, if I have to do a New Orleans to get into a MegaCon, okay, I'm going to break even in New Orleans.
Right.
But if I have to do, 6 random Animate shows to get into Raleigh, am I gonna break even in those? Especially with how much those booths, like you guys had
Yeah.
said, how much they are, along with all the other stuff that goes along with it, like all the travel to random locales around the country. Is
Well,
it
here's
worth
something
it?
I also just wish the industry would do is, let's just say a certain company has 8 shows or 10 shows, and you're eventually going to do them all, if that is what you want to do. It'd be wonderful to be like, if is there any sort of discount if I say yes, I will do all these shows, and
Yeah.
then you lock that in. But for the most part, I've yet to find one that wants to do that.
Yeah, because they're
Wizard
going to
used
get
to do
full
it.
price from. They're going to get full price from
Exactly.
whether it's you paying every single show or Alexa doing one, you doing one, and me doing one. They're going to get it. So why would they discount it? So
Well,
Mhm.
but
that's
what's
the issue.
wild is these larger businesses will reach out and say, well, I'd like to buy,
12
40,
booths. Yeah.
40 10 by 10s. Oh, well, in that case, you can have them for $700 each.
Exactly. Because it's, what it is though. It's because we look better if we have Marvel there, or the big companies versus Pixel. You know what I'm saying? Not to crap on you, Dylan. You know what I'm saying?
It's such reverse, like it's
Reverse
it doesn't
racism?
make sense. Well, no, it doesn't make sense. Like, the reverse is what it should be. Oh, you want 40
Right.
booths at my event?
Yeah, you can
Guess
afford
what?
it.
Now you're gonna pay a premium for those 40 booths, because now I don't have diversity in my vendor floor.
Well,
Now
not
I
even
don't.
that. You can afford it. You're a multi-billion-dollar
Well,
company or whatever.
exactly.
You can afford 40
But
booths.
that doesn't even matter. Now you're taking away the diversity of the floor, which is
Right.
one of the things. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, people come for all the guests. Yes, they do, but they come to shop the vendor floor. I talked to somebody this past weekend. Actually, no, it was Friday night. I did a night market here in Orlando, and these 2 girls walked up to the booth and they're like, "Oh my God, we recognize you from New York Comic Con." What? They're here doing SeaWorld, the Howl-O-Scream, and Horror Nights. They come down every year, and they were bored, so they did the night market. And we were talking, and they do New York every year. They did not buy tickets this year because last year they were so upset that it felt like there was way too much corporate there and not enough vendors. And look, they had more vendors last year than they had the year before, but they've expanded the corporate, and like, people go for the vendors. They don't go for these massive corporate booths unless you're a Funko collector and you're going for Funko.
Well,
or
a
your
subclass of corporate events or boots that we need to do away with are like the Verizons, or the things that
Yeah,
really aren't even
they're
Comic-Con
standing out
related,
there.
and they're taking
Yeah,
a 30 by 10 to spin the wheel to save money on Geico or so. I don't think I've seen Geico before, but those sort of things.
oh,
I'd at
Geico's been
least
I
there.
rather
have.
see
Yeah, I've seen
I'd at
them.
least rather see Marvel there as a
Right.
customer than that.
Or how about the hurricane windows people? You see those at some shows too.
Well,
That
and
must be a
I
Florida
haven't
thing.
seen those. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't
Not
seen
finding that in
like
Texas.
the gutter guard guys or the window guys lately. But they do pop up still.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I'm like, really? Like, have we not moved past that yet? Um, but I think, we're going to start seeing these shows that are ever expanding, leveraging, against vendors. They're
Yeah,
already. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, because Verizon, they're like, oh, we'll pay $3,000 for this attendance, and then I can see that cheapening like the customer experience for next year. Like, they didn't, that the person that sold glassware is not there, sort of thing. Just because we keep getting kind of pushed out for things like this.
Yeah. Hey, what's up,
Hi,
Max? Is that Max?
Get his hot take on this.
Yeah.
Right.
Careless.
He's gonna be like, look, I just want
As
to go
long as
play
he
golf.
doesn't. Yeah, that's what he came in to get a golf hat. See?
See, yep. I knew it. I knew it. So I don't need this.
Different hat.
I don't need this.
It's not sunny in Florida right now. We've also got the, with all the expansion, all of the I guess what's the word I'm looking for? They're thinning other cons' ability to to draw in those guests, because now
Yeah, I'm
you
not
know
going twice.
yeah
Unless it's like a guest that I have to go see, but you're playing with fire there.
right.
You know?
Hayden Christensen was in Tampa this year, but he was also at MegaCon, but it was also 6 months apart. So there was definitely some time in there, but he's not going to come back to MegaCon next year because there's no reason for him to. So now, you've kind of thinned the guest list when you have so many shows, because there's no reason for them to come twice. They're going to go to
He'll
the
still make his guarantee.
100%.
Especially now that James Earl
100%.
Jones is dead.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And I think the last thing is, like, with GalaxyCon, I'm a little nervous. You know, they've purchased some horror properties, some licensing for them, and it was a quick thing that was popped on We Are Vendors, and a lot of us took notice, just because we're like, wait a minute, doesn't this person own the rights to that, or this person own the rights to that? And they have like third party rights to them. And they haven't announced what they're doing with, like Rocky Horror Picture Show, The Crow. There's a couple others that are, like third, fourth tier names, but they've started doing that, so they're going to do something with it. There's a plan, whether it's to create a centric event around that, which in turn, if they treat it anything like a creation events do not let artists or people that do handmade items in, if they're unlicensed. So, they're going to start, are they going to start cutting out, the guys that do crow stuff, that do crow art? Oh, you can't sell that crow art here. You have to be licensed. Or are they going to start, charging licensing fees? They've also centralized some of the things that they do. And while it's not a terrible idea, they've also cut vendors out of the process. They've got their own Wild Bill's gig now, where they sell the cup and they've got a soda thing. And Wild Bill's isn't at their events anymore. And then they've also, pop-up lockers was a big deal for a while. They were doing their events, and it's a fantastic idea where, a company comes in, the event pays for them to be there, and they give them space, and people use their lockers to store their stuff in. So you can rent out this locker, and you can rent
Grand
out the
Central
locker,
Station.
right? And you get, you get to stuff all your crap in there that you bought throughout the weekend. And you can do it for the day, the weekend, whatever. GalaxyCon has now purchased lockers, and they're doing that on their own. How long before they corner the market on watercolor princess art, or dystopian feeling travel posters? Like like obviously they're not going that niche, but what else are they going to do? Are they going to cut out a Stylin and start doing their own boxes? Where is that cutoff going to be? Because I've said it before. We had our first vendorless con in August with Fanatics Fest in NYC that Fanatics put on, and they were selling their own stuff at that event. How long before conventions that are larger start getting that same idea and start pushing the vendors out and only have their merch there?
Hopefully not for a long while.
Hopefully, and I don't think it's going to happen very, very, very quickly or at all. If it's a thing, but still.
All right, so I think I heard Willie saying he needs to go out.
We've been beating the dead horse too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's whining in the background. He's like,
I'm gonna
"Hey,
run Max. I'm gonna
I
run
got a
Max to the
potty."
golf course.
All right, well, guys, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back with the next segment. So stay tuned. It's a doozy.
And we are back with another segment, and it was such a long pause that Willie was outside going to the bathroom so long that we decided to change clothes.
It was so hot outside that I sweat through everything.
But I feel like Dylan's always wearing the same shirt. Maybe it's
Hey,
just
you know
me.
what? It's consistency. You gotta have that continuity, no matter what time Ryan says you want to do a podcast.
I mean,
we planned this
true.
one well ahead of time.
Yes,
So I
yes,
don't
2
want any
hours.
back talk.
2 hours we planned it ahead of time.
That's better than my 5-minute notice.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. So
what are we talking about on this segment?
Let's talk about the elephant, or the two trunked elephant in the room, AI.
AI and shows.
Oh
All
man,
right.
it's
We mentioned it a long time ago.
we did, and I'm gonna rehash it because
Do we have to?
we're gonna, because it needs to people still need to remember. Pensacon literally went after an artist that called them out for using, for basically using AI in their merch that they were selling. Their programs, their badges, some T-shirts, bags, whatever it was that they had. And look, we can't definitively say it was AI, but every single thing that you can think of pointed to this thing being AI. From different small differences when they, had the color changes, to just the fact that there's the way that the art was done was not a typical art style. And that artist was later called out for sharing things as their own that belonged to other artists. They backpedaled. Pensacon went after anybody that talked about it being AI, and then it just kind of died. Nobody really talked about it past that. So here we are, 6 months later, I think. Let's see, yeah, about 6 months later, and we've seen AI art starting to pop up regularly at some of the shows that we do, like, that are larger shows. So I think we should probably talk about that. How are we going to approach it in the future, and what it means for the industry going forward.
Well, I can tell you that at least for the time being, it's here to stay, because although it does suck, how visually I feel like you can look at something and be like, totally AI, but there's no way to actually prove it, right?
Well, at the
Yes.
moment, I mean, yeah,
At,
but
at the moment, yeah. I mean, maybe in the future. Online, I know there's some stuff that pops up and it'll say generated by AI when you can go in there and say, oh, it's a 99%. But if you're at a show, what are you doing? Taking a picture of it and putting it in a thing? But again, you can't prove that's just the computer saying, yeah, it's highly likely. You know what I'm saying?
it's more of a feeling, you know. You
Oh,
see
I agree with
something,
you.
and
I agree.
especially
When you look at it visually, you or me or any of us, you look at it, you go, that is totally AI. There is no way. You know what I mean? So there's some stuff, but again, you can't go to. I feel like if a vendor's doing it, we could go to a vendor and be like, dude, totally AI. What the hell? And they'll be like, no, it's not. What are you gonna do? You know, and even if you're a showrunner, how can you? Yes, you can go there and go, hey, it's my show. I believe it to be, so you got to go. But I don't know if there's any recourse from the artists or the vendor, whatever. I don't know if there's any recourse they could try to sue. I don't know how that works.
well, whether it should be the standard or not. There was a small show I did this year, and there's a lot of times you're reading everything and it's like no AI art, but this one it was like, can you prove that your AI art is not AI? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But I like linked to my Instagram. I'm like, you can look back 7-8 years, look at the designs that I'm bringing. Like,
But we all know one artist that posts like new stuff every other day, and it's digital. He's a digital artist, and I'd be willing to bet my house that it's AI art. And the person's a really, really, really good artist. So I don't understand why he does it. I think it's just to knock out new pieces quicker, but it is clearly AI art. But again, there's nothing, you can't say, hey, I've had it for years because, hey, I just did it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, ultimately, I feel like, not to beat a dead horse with this, I feel like the argument is done when saying everybody agrees that it sucks. Everybody agrees that it's here. I feel like it's here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. But I don't know what a showrunner could possibly do, because you have to prove it. Other than them going, hey, it's my show, I think it is, and I don't like it, you got to go. They could maybe do that, but then you run into litigation stuff.
So let me talk about it from a showrunner side. I believe going forward, in the contracts that we have, we actually have that, we do not allow AI art. And it's something to the effect of, if we suspect that your art is, produced by AI, we will ask you to provide proof that it's not. If you are creating artwork as a creator, and you know this as well as I do, Ryan, Meg has progress photos of her stuff. You will have progress photos.
At least one, right? Yeah.
A lot of these artists now that are creating things digitally, they create it, and I can't remember the platform that they use, but it records everything from start to finish.
Right.
So you have this digital footprint. If you can show me that, that's great. At the same time, as a showrunner, if an artist comes to me and says, "Hey, this artist is selling art that's AI," I'm going to look into it.
But again, what are you looking into?
Well, I'm looking into the fact that
Just
is
for
it
proof,
AI?
like, because
Yeah.
think about it. Like Dylan, you do digital art, so you can maybe shed some light on this. So let's say you do an AI piece, right? You can easily go in with one of your Photoshop or whatever what is the app you use to do the drawing? It's not Photoshop.
Photoshop.
It is Photoshop. Oh, okay. I thought there was another app.
I mean, all
Procreate.
Adobe things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Illustrator,
anyway, so
everything.
you can go into that and take a brush and show yourself doing something, right? And then undo it after, and then you could, hey, here's my photo, here's me doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could show you me brushing on the screen, shading.
That's not how it works, Ryan. You're not an
How does it
artist,
work?
so you're
No,
so
I know
you're not getting it.
I'm asking. That wasn't me saying this is how it's done. I'm thinking of an easy way out. So
it's the easiest way out on the planet that every single person that has been busted for doing AI art has tried. They've done, they've used Illustrator to create a sketch of it at first.
Okay.
And it's very obvious from
Okay.
that aspect whenever
So
they
that
try to do that.
helps.
I mean, I think you probably agree, Dylan. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and honestly, you would be doing more work to do it through AI than it would be to prove that. It's more work to show your work. Like let's just say there was a huge math problem and you have the answer. I feel like it would be more work to show your work than to just figure out how to to get to the end result the right way.
Exactly.
Right.
So at that point, just do it, and then it will sell better. Also,
Or you could do Common Core math and you don't have to show your work. Sorry, I digress.
Didn't we
Didn't we get rid
outlaw
of that?
Common Core math?
I
Yeah.
think so. Good Lord, it was the worst.
Yeah, it really was. I didn't understand it, and I'm like, no, but it's this way. And they're like, no, that's not the answer. And I'm like, no, but it is the answer. It's literally the answer. So, wow, talking about math. Never going to use that as an adult.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now you don't need it. Just ask Siri.
I mean, it's true. It's true. Or have AI do your math homework.
But like I always said in college, if you don't know the answer, the guy next to you does.
I mean, here's a semi-hot take. I feel like customers are not going to want to buy AI art. Customers want to buy from people. And so let's just say your neighbor is selling AI art. Is it selling? Are they offering AI art, but are customers actually going like, "Oh, I like that"? Because I feel like the customers that want this sort of artwork on their wall, they also want to talk to Meg. Or even if they want to talk to you, oh, like, what's this? It's watercolor. You can talk to them. If it's just some thing that's just quickly generated, it's not selling. So there's also that. Like, you're going to be better. You're going to be doing better by doing it the right way anyway. And so if all these poor works are side by side with you, it's like it's only going to make you look better. Now that's not the root of the problem, but I mean there's that if you're doing it the right way.
I agree. I will say, a show in your hometown this past summer, Dylan. There was a booth. It was I think a 10 by 20 that had all AI art. It was
Which-
reported to show management. One of their pieces was infringing on a license that someone else holds. And it was still not removed from the show floor. So, obvious AI art, and it was an infringement on a license that someone had, and they still didn't pull it from the floor.
So
Wild to me.
So again, what does you do shows, so what can you do as as a showrunner? You're going to go over there. What are you going to say to the guy?
So first and foremost,
or
as a showrunner,
she,
I'm walking over and saying, "Hey, you have a piece that the rights holder
forget the
has."
rights holder. Just let's attack it from just an AI part.
No, it's both. We're going to attack it from both because you can't separate the two because they are literally one and the same. Because I'm sorry, if you're doing AI art, you are infringing on the rights just like everybody else is. But with this, and I'm citing the specific case, okay? AI art aside, they refuse to remove the piece from the show floor. Now, when you get over to this booth, there are out of proportion hands. There are things that they didn't take care of in Photoshop to clean up on this art that has been selling all weekend long. People were like, yeah, that's been a busy booth because they've got, different stuff. They've put it through filters and they've changed coloring and they've done stuff. And, it's one of those things where it's obvious that it's AI. Anyone that looks at it can tell. And they're still allowing it to be there because this particular convention doesn't have a policy on AI usage. Now, let's back this up a little bit. That same company was using artwork from an artist that was just busted for doing a couple of comic book covers using AI.
Now, when you say that, are you saying they're just doing fan art on an IP, or you're saying the artwork is basically one to one being copied and then tweak, not just okay, here's the Flash in a different pose. You know, you put your
So
own tweak on.
what they're doing is they're saying, okay, the Flash, create an image of the Flash running through the streets of Manhattan with lightning bolts coming out of his eyes. And that's the prompt that comes in. They do the Flash, and they might put a filter on it, but they're not editing the the crap out of the photos for the most part. So
And people are still buying
the
that, customers.
yeah, like
Oh, yeah.
one, what the hell's wrong with you people?
Mm-hmm.
But two, like they're literally just taking that spit out image, doing a little bit of post work to it, and then setting it to print.
What is post work?
It's
Well,
Just
if you
clean.
just have the AI
little
art that looks like
touch-ups.
this, if you maybe but
Add a little shading or something. Add
Right,
a
you're taking off the leg that's growing out of his forehead,
right.
something
Okay.
like
Okay.
that.
I mean, this might
Just
be
wondering.
arrogant, but I feel like the best artist is going to win, and that whether it's artist
I
versus
agree.
artist, and if it's artist versus AI artist, they might be making sales, but it's not a sustainable business model, and I don't feel
See,
like
why
people are
is
going to
it
want to
not?
come back and be like, well, people like to
Because
go
think
back to
about it. If I
Meg's
could go,
booth and say, "Hey, oh, Meg did this. This is amazing." Are they going to come back and be like? Also, I feel like
but
in
if
a
I'm
year from
not,
now, people are going to be even more desensitized to AI art. And so, are they going to be so
but if
excited to
I'm
go
not,
back to that booth?
if I'm not touting it as AI, say I'm saying, hey, I'm the artist. I did this stuff. Like the person I was talking about earlier, they're saying I did this stuff. This is art created by me. How hard is it for me to go, hey, Chat GPT, create me a picture of the Flash running around a building? You know what I mean?
Well,
Whatever,
it's just
in
not
New York City.
sustainable
But
because if you're saying the art of Ryan Withy is this style and it's an AI style, it's really not that unique. And so, therefore, you might get a sale or two, but I feel like it's just not going to sustain
I'm
itself to
thinking,
be.
I mean, okay, I see your point from that part, but I'm thinking sustainability in terms of I can come out with a new thing every single hour, every minute. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm thinking as far as sustainability. So I get what you're saying. The style might not look the same. And to me, I'm not an artist by any stretch, but I can see, I know an artist's style. When I see it, I go, yeah, that's definitely one of his. That's one of her. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see that stuff. And I got to assume there's got to be a way to do that in AI. There has
I
to
just
be.
think there's so much more to selling art than even your backdrop. I mean, it's kind of a science. It's if somebody's just going to be using AI, how's their setup looking? How's their logo? Are they outsourcing that? Is everything just kind of sloppy and I feel like it just isn't going to hold up to the OGs that are you see at all these shows all the time that are putting their hard work in, because if they're cutting this corner, does that mean that they're this great at this corner and that's why they do well? I think they probably
Right.
aren't. This is just their quick way of making money, and when then that passes, they'll move on to the next hustle.
Yeah.
Eh,
No, you have a point there, but if they're making money, I mean, it's easy. How hard is it to
Mhm.
say create this for me, get a print done, and then bring it to a show and sell it? It's not hard. So that's easy work other than the
So
travel.
conversely, all of us have been in this industry for a minute. A lot of the artists that I know that are established have been in the industry as long or longer than I have. Why wouldn't that new person be garnering a ton of attention because they've got this different style of art? It and what I think I'm saying is I think the AI booths that we're starting to see, some of the AI assisted art, whatever we want to call it, I think those people are they're going to hurt, maybe not, you know, you or, you Dylan or you Ryan, but they're going to hurt the overall sales in the industry because they are going to take a chunk out of it, because I've seen all of Dylan's stuff. I've seen all of Meg's stuff. I've seen all of Terry Huddleston's stuff. I've seen all of Damon Bowie's stuff, quote unquote. So now, oh look, there's this new person here, and holy crap, they're selling prints for $10 a piece, or 4 for $30. Yeah, I'll do that. So they're, because they don't have to pay an artist, they can
There's
sell it super cheap, and they're gonna
but
blow out
see
for a
that's
minute.
that to me is where they need to, they're smart. If they're smart, they're not just going to do let me undercut everybody and make a quick buck, because that's going to flame out quickly. I feel like they could just jump in the scene and be like, oh, Meg selling them for 30 or 40, Dylan selling them for 25, Damon selling them for 40, Terry, whatever, and then try to be around the same price as a because that way I'm not stealing, I'm not undercutting. I'm in that range, and then I can, just stay in that range and just ride it out. Because
Yeah.
like you said, you could definitely come in and go, hey, $10 a piece, and people are like, oh shit, let me take them. And then it's gonna be like, wait a minute.
They wouldn't have that connection to that page, and I feel like that's why people buy art.
That's another
is that
thing
connection.
too. Yeah.
And if that is what we're competing against, is low-hanging AI fruit, then I feel like we would just have to do better, and we would make a better product. If people are switching to this, I'm not going to follow the trend. I feel like it would just raise the competition, and I don't even say I don't like saying raise the competition with AI, because I feel like it's just so low. And even if it gets better, again, I feel like people just don't feel that connected to somebody that entered a prompt versus somebody that put 25 hours into a piece, and maybe you talk to that person, and that's what's gonna sell and get people coming back.
25 must be nice. Meg's like 30 hours into the new the new Rapunzel one.
It's the idea that takes the longest, not the
Wait,
actual
hold on.
information.
There's a new Punzi? What?
You haven't seen her Instagram? Oh my gosh, you'll
Dude,
love this
I don't literally, I don't look at anybody's Instagrams.
You don't even listen to your own podcast.
No, I don't, because I'm on it. Why do I need to listen to it?
Just to hear your voice and go, oh wow, I really sound like that, because I do it all the time.
That's what I don't want to listen to. That's why I don't listen to it.
But yeah, the new one is them in the boat in front of the big castle.
Oh, I'm gonna need it to go with my to go with my Ariel that's up on the wall.
Way over in the corner. Got it.
Yeah. I try and like push all your stuff out of the way.
But one thing though, when it comes to that, so Meg a lot of times has said to me, like, people will copy, not copy, but like, she'll do an Aladdin piece, for example, then boom, someone sees her working on it, and boom, they do an Aladdin piece, right? And it's like she gets kind of mad. She's like, they're able to do it quicker because it's digital or whatever else they're doing. They're doing it quicker because watercolor takes so long. And she's like, at the end of the day, you can copy the characters, you can copy this, you can't copy talent.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's other watercolor artists out there. She always seems to think, this one's so much better than me. But I'm like, at the end of the day, our sales are fine. Like, we're doing great. So obviously people love your stuff. They like the interaction with you. So, you can't really copy that, that talent. So that kind of goes to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I feel like imitation can force you to level up. I mean, a lot of my main style is very silhouette minimalist. And it used to be very silhouette minimalist. And then, it's not like I own silhouettes. A lot of other people would do silhouettes. So what did I do? I just started like working on the comps a little bit better, the lighting a bit better. Now I can do special effects that, that levels up. And that's not something that you can just put into a prompt. And you have to,
right.
So level up alongside the competition.
I agree. But I do think like last weekend, or I guess not this past weekend, but the weekend before, the show that I was at, there was an accusation being put out there that
your glassware was AI.
Yes, that one of the artists who had created a comic book had created the entire thing through AI, and every single bit of it had the hallmarks of an AI generated character. But looking at it, there's no way that they could have gotten that consistency all the way through.
To use it as a tool.
There's no way to do that through AI. Like, keep this image and now make that same image, but with his hand up, chopping down, or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I would assume there is.
Maybe someone can chime in and let us know. If that's
I mean, look, there's a rumor that there's a program out there.
There will be soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a rumor that there's a program out there that a highly prominent company was using to generate images that were
it's crazy,
flawless. Now, do I know if it was actually happening or not? No, which is why I'm not naming the company. But it was out there for a while because they were turning out so much new art so fast,
So fast. That's the key right
and
there.
it was we just turned out 15 images for this event, and the next weekend they had another 15 images. Uh, so is there? Who knows?
Right.
Would I love to know? Absolutely. Um, but I want to shift gears for a second because we're talking about comic conventions. Some of our listeners don't typically do Comic Con / anime cons. Some of them do, pride festivals and, art walks and flea markets because we've talked about flea markets a lot. Something that I've seen popping up a lot at the flea markets and the night markets that I do are AI generated laser engraved pieces. So coasters, ornaments, um, designs on like boxes and wall art that are clearly AI generated. You can put in a prompt, snowman doing whatever, or Santa Claus going down a chimney, or what have you. Um, but they're generic images. Part of me hates it, and part of me is like, you know what? Whatever. Because you're literally not pulling from an artist at that point. You're pulling from you know, a
Your
billion
program.
different versions of Santa Claus or a billion different versions of a snowman. Not, you know, six artists' interpretations of Batman. So I'm kind of on that. I still don't love it, but it's out there. It's out there in every freaking avenue that we're seeing now.
Now it's definitely a blight on the industry, and I think yeah, just trying to kind of catch up with curated vendors and Artist Alley through the show. That's basically the first step. It's like the best shows are the ones that are curated, and you have to show a portfolio site or your website. And I mean, if it doesn't pass the sniff test on that, then that's your first step, and then hopefully we can pass the other side of it to the consumer, and eventually they're hopefully just not interested in that sort of thing. But
So back to my original question though. If it doesn't pass the sniff test, do you, as a showrunner, do you have to be able to unequivocally prove it, or is it really on you to go, you know what, I just don't feel right about it, so you're gone?
you're
Is
the
that?
showrunner. You should be able to do what you
I
want.
think so, but
And
Alexa, she would know. That's why I'm asking.
So if it were me and somebody came to me and said, "Look, this person has 15 pieces in their booth that I think are AI."
Right, you tell them to remove those.
Well, I
Right.
would talk to the artist and I'd be like, "Look, I've got 8 complaints, 6 complaints, whatever the complaints are. Um, you know, I just need I need something so that I can reassure, my other vendors what you have is created by you or your proxies."
So then, what is good enough proof? Because then, like I said earlier too, could I just show you, hey, here's the original sketch, and here's my hand with the pencil. Is that good enough? Because I could easily sketch something out, and then AI,
It's not going to be
based
good
on
enough.
that.
Do you have
So what?
progress
Yeah. What
photos?
what would appease you?
Do you have a couple of progress pieces,
Okay.
for these items? Because prime example, there's a fantastic artist that she's just popped into the scene in the last year. Um, she does a lot of her artwork is kind of it has a darker feel, um, but she does like it feels darker in everything. Um, she was accused a couple weeks ago of her artwork being AI because of how she draws. And she's like, "No, I literally have the original right here. This was done with charcoal
Right.
and whatever." And like she can prove through, because she films herself doing every single piece. She can prove that. Um, and I'll tell you, like I said, most artists have progress. They don't just start on something
Right. Right.
and go from the initial sketch to finished. That's not how most artists work. Without putting some sort of like, oh, look, here's my progress. Here's my progress. I know when I'm working on something, I save multiple versions of it. I'll get to a certain point and I'll save it so that if I want to do a variation of it, I don't have to redo the entire thing, or I don't have to sift through layers to do it.
As AI gets better, I could see this being proving your work at the booth could even be a form of great marketing. For instance, Withy, if you guys had a magic mirror iPad, but you had a little frame, and
We
it had a
do.
video of them like
We
Megan.
have that at some shows where we have a video just kind of on a loop that just shows her painting.
And because I feel like some
Yeah.
people might even be like, oh, she doesn't watercolor, she digitally paints. And that's not even
Right.
the question of AI. But if you're seeing this, I feel like, oh, it just gives you that sort of connect to the arts. And interesting
Yeah.
ways to do that could, make you stand out versus others.
Yeah, no, we definitely do that. We don't do it for every show, but we do that.
I mean, she even does live painting at some shows.
Mhm.
So
Yes, and
But
there's
it's not
also
AI
that.
whenever she's there. Like,
Yeah.
get the little-
She
the
she
little
is
bucket.
AI. Period.
I agree.
She's a hologram. She's Tupac.
She's part of Gem. No,
That's Seth Rollins.
no, it isn't Gem in the holograms. No,
Yes.
anyone?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
just making
but
sure I'm on the
she's-
same
she's-
page.
But she's still Seth Rollins.
Correct.
Sorry, Seth freaking Rollins.
For those who don't
Um,
know, look up Seth Rollins and his jackets, and then
Yeah.
come see Meg at a show.
Any show. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. She'll have on a floofy jacket or ridiculous pants. Oh, we love it.
Where were
love
we?
it. So look, as a showrunner, I'm gonna remove somebody if they can't prove to me that their work that their work isn't AI. Now, if it's only a couple of offending pieces, I'm not gonna remove them. I'm gonna tell them that they've got to pull it down.
Take them down, right?
But if I
Obviously, if they say no, I'm not doing it, then okay, well,
Yeah.
then you got to go.
okay, well then see you later. Because
Yeah,
sorry, I'm not comfortable letting someone into the show. Like if we've had this before where someone has applied and they've completely lied on their application about what they sell. Oh, I sell, these 9 things. And when they show up, they've got, they showed up, they applied for an Artist Alley table, they show up and they've got toys that they're selling. And I'm like,
right. And Funkos.
yeah, no. Like, no, get out of here. Go, you can either pay the difference for an artist or a vendor booth, or go get your art that you said you have.
Yeah.
Okay. That has happened. So, look, I do feel like shows need to start being a little bit more proactive about it, because it's not only, ethically wrong, but it's also taking up space on a show floor
Right.
that another vendor could be in. Now, as a stingy ass vendor, you know what? I hope they don't get any money, and it just gives us more money on the floor.
Right.
But we all know it's not going to happen.
Right. There's a sucker born out there all the time.
Abso-freaking-lutely. So, shows have got to be more proactive, but they also have to listen to the vendors that are like, look, Johnny Doolittle over there, his booth, his booth's mostly AI. And enforce those policies. Don't just have one.
Mhm.
Don't just have it. And I want to spin something else into it. I'm seeing more and more times Artist Alley is sponsored by certain groups.
Oh, right.
And I'm sorry, but if Ryan, I don't care. Like you guys could sponsor Artist Alley because Meg is the artist. Dylan, you guys are a collective, so I don't think it's fair that you could sponsor an Artist Alley because you're not an artist. I feel like Artist Alley should be sponsored by somewhere like an art supply company or something like that. But whenever you're a large company that is literally in the middle of the floor selling art, you shouldn't be sponsoring Artist Alley because you're not in Artist Alley. like there are several companies that do that where they'll sponsor the Artist Alley.
I know of two.
And yes,
They
and
sell the same item.
and they don't do their art, none of it.
Right.
So it's like, what are you doing? With that being said, I think conventions have to be better for their artists in
And the
all
customers.
aspects,
And the
the
customers,
customers,
right.
exactly. Because look, every bit of this started. All these cons started because of artists.
Yeah.
I don't want artists to get a big head and think that you're the most important thing on the floor, but you are one of the most important
Husband
things
of
on
the
the
artist.
floor. Yeah, exactly.
Eye candy.
Eye candy. Yeah, I knew he was going to say it. So,
Speaking of eyes, it's cleared up.
oh yeah, good.
No new ones
You,
after your dual gold medal.
I did have 2 dents where I got blood, but they didn't.
Oh, well.
But it was worth it. I got 2 golds.
You know what?
I'm basically Michael Phelps. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. And on that note, I think I need to. I need to go either wash the bullshit off of my boots right now, or get some lunch. So
I need to go wash Meg's car. So maybe we need to take a little break.
That sounds
all
good
right,
to me.
manservant. We'll wrap up this segment, and we will be back. The next segment is going to be a doozy. I'm excited for it.
And we'll see what color shirts we're wearing then.
Exactly. Mine'll probably be black.
Bye.
All right, we are back, and we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. So we're one short for this last part here. So Dylan, how do we want to wrap this up?
Well, first I want to say if you're watching this in chronological order, which you should, my beard I think is
That's
doubled
how
in
I'm
length
posting it.
each
You don't have a
time.
choice.
Yeah, and my beard's doubled in length each time. That just tells you how long it's taken for us to wrap this up. But yeah, I thought good way to wrap this up. Just say some of the things that are coming up in the future. We want to post a pod about New York preview because New York's upon us. Everybody handles it a little bit differently. Maybe it's your first time, ways to save money if you haven't already booked certain things. So you can expect hopefully next week a New York Comic-Con preview. If any other vendors want to pop on, we're happy to talk to them.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 different viewpoints of it. So it'll be obviously ours, yours, and Alexa's. Just to, it should be all different. So and then everybody
we all handle
else can chime
load
in.
Yeah. So we got that. Yeah. Let's see. If you haven't booked some of your Q1 shows, you best get on that. And so I think I think it'll probably be good to have a pod pretty soon, just kind of chatting about end of year and the first quarter of next year. Some of the shows we're doing and thoughts on if you shouldn't, just kind of a not long but shortish con job
Just
about
some
that.
heads up stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, just a little call out to any vendors. If you guys want to do a little vendor spotlight, hop on, just kind of tell us your story and maybe some tips and tricks of the trade. Like, reach on out. We also we got
post a comment on YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and we'll get with you and try to get you on.
Yeah, and maybe these long cons can be an hour long instead of 2 hours long. So I think now's a good time to just say that is it.
That is a wrap. So yeah, we'll catch you guys next week.
All right, see you guys.